You're listening to WMPG 90.9 Quorum Portland, Southern Maine Community Radio from USM. Live from the Orion Cygnus arm of the Milky Way galaxy, this is Scientifically Speaking, a weekly half-hour program devoted to elegant curiosities, and I am one of your hosts, Sarah Chang, and joining me as always is Bernie Rhyme, DJ Starwatcher. How are you, Bernie?
Yes, hi, Sarah. Very good, thank you.
Bernie's our professor of the astronomy lab here at USM and our local protector of the night skies. Reach out to us at WMPG Scientifically Speaking at gmail.com or on Twitter at WMPG SciSpeak. And you can head over to WMPG.org to find the last 5 weeks of archives of all of your favorite shows, including this one. Bernie, could you let our listeners know what's up in the night sky for the coming week?
Okay, certainly, yeah, I'll be glad to. So this will be Friday, February 25th. It'll be a waning crescent moon. Since the last quarter moon was a couple days ago on the 23rd, that's the one that came up at midnight. So the moon isn't going to come up till about 3 in the morning. So plenty of time to look at other fainter objects. However, the problem is there really won't be any planets left. We're just losing Jupiter. It's already too low in the sky to see. So unless you like getting up early, all the planets are basically in the morning sky now. There is one that you could see if you know where to look and if you have binoculars or a telescope, and that would be the planet Uranus. And that's in the constellation of Aries. That's actually a kind of an interesting story. It was discovered in March of 1781 by William Herschel, and it just about completed 3 orbits. It takes 84 years. It's only done 3 orbits, 3 years on that planet, and the whole time since it's been discovered. And William Herschel was an interesting character. His sister was also an astronomer. They were both accomplished musicians. She found a bunch of comets. He built the biggest telescope in the world at the time, back at 40 foot long. The aperture was only 4 feet, but the scope physically was 40 feet long. A friend of mine visited it over in England. So they're quite an interesting story. Okay, so then let me see. The days just made 11 hours long. It's about 6:25 to 5:25. So we're not still almost a month till spring. But the days just hit 11 hours long. And then a really brief update on the James Webb Telescope. Everything's going great. It actually took its first image, but of course it has 18 segments. So it has 18 separate images. So they got to merge all that, but they are where they expect it. They're like all over the place. They're within reason. It's actually a star in the Big Dipper that I think anyone can find. It's just outside of the asterism that you can see just to the right of it. So it's kind of neat to look for that star on a clear night and know that that's the one they just took. So it'll be about a 3-month process to merge the images and to keep cooling down the instruments and all the other neat things they have to do. But everything's going right on schedule perfectly well.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I did see, I'm not sure what it was. Maybe you saw it. It was like an image of all 18 mirrors.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's what it was. It was 18 different images. Okay. That's
18 images of that one star in the Big Dipper.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
So nothing earth shaking, and it's obviously, but still, it's just kind of neat to have the thing there,
Yep. Makes sense.
They're kind of working. They're just not lined up yet.
Right.
Kind of working.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I saw it, but I didn't read it. So very neat. Thank you, Bernie.
Oh, you're welcome.
And if you couldn't take notes fast enough, you can also check out the monthly What's Up column in the Portland Press Herald. So every once in a while, we here at Scientifically Speaking try to align our shows with something that is celebrated nationally. And this month we are closing out February in celebration of Black History Month. But here is some trivia. All right, Bernie, true or false? Black History Month is only celebrated in the U.S.
Well, I don't know. I think it should be celebrated elsewhere, so I'd say false.
Good job. It is actually also celebrated in Canada. So they started to celebrate it also in February in 1995, but is also celebrated in Ireland and the UK in October annually. And I believe Germany also celebrates it. So I don't remember what month they are, but
I'm
anyway.
not German, so that's good. That's good.
True or false? Black History Month used to be Black History Week.
Yeah, it sounds true.
Sounds true or is true?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you didn't tell me what that would be. So I can only say that it would sound true. Like it may have only been one day, then maybe they made a week and a month. So is it true?
It's
No,
true. It is
it
true.
is true. Well, I
So
was right
in
then. And then,
I didn't I wish you got it wrong, because I'm like you can't it's
oh well, no,
come
just
on.
no, I want to try to get it right, even if I don't
No,
know it.
I'm just kidding. Good job. So in 1926 there was something called Negro History Week.
Hmm.
And it happened during the second week of February, and they tried to coincide it with the birthday of Abraham Lincoln. And then
Hmm.
in 1970, it became Black History Month, and the month was kind of first proposed by Black educators at Kent State University, along with the student group Black United Students. And I think they proposed it in 1969, and it became Black History Month in 1970. So
Hmm.
there was a lot of, I think, challenges in getting it to be kind of celebrated nationally, since like the very first week, and then with month, I think it was obviously very much embraced um, by the black kind of communities and kind of progressive Americans as well.
Mhm.
Black History Month, though, I did want to mention is a trouble designation. So I know that nothing like wrong with it inherently, but some prominent Black voices do criticize kind of
Hmm.
the declaration of only 1 month as Black History Month when Black history is American history, and I think that's a valid point, and is a reason why kind of anything labeled is often feels anachronistic, and because sometimes it suggests that it only deserves attention in a certain context. So did want to recognize that, but we're here to celebrate a couple of amazing Black scientists.
Mhm.
So we each did some research on two Black people in science who made incredible contributions, or if you're like Bernie, you picked up their books,
Yeah,
which
right.
is
I jumped right into it.
no, which is
Good way
really
to do
great.
research. Get the
Yes,
whole book.
just get the whole book.
Yes.
So Bernie, you are going to share our first
Mhm.
scientist.
Okay. So now we tried to pick scientists that weren't that famous, and the first person I only vaguely heard of, I didn't know that much about her, and the other one, who I did get the book also, I hadn't heard of him at all. So that's pretty good. So her name is Dr. Chanda Prescod-Weinstein. And her book is called Disordered Cosmos, A Journey into Dark Matter, Space-Time, and Dreams Deferred. So this is really interesting. It's not just about the science, like we've been reading a lot of things in the Julian Barber book on time and all that stuff. So this is more of a memoir in a way, because she really sets the stage for all the things she had to go through. She's only 26 years old. She has an interesting history herself. She actually teaches at UNH, so I may try to get in touch with her. She teaches physics and women's and gender studies.
Wow.
So it goes. She's Jewish, African American, and she's actually started in East LA. She headed, the worst part of LA out there. She went to high school. She was one of the best mathematicians in her high school class and so on. But she ran into all the problems Hakeem Olaseye did. We did a whole show on him. So she ran into those problems. Ended up getting her PhD from Imperial College in Waterloo, in Ontario, near Toronto. But yeah, so this is more in a way more like a memoir, because she incorporates weaves all those other issues in there to be more of a guide for other people that had similar issues and so on. All right, so one of the interesting points about her book, because it's more than just about science, it's really almost a memoir in a way, because she weaves all her own experiences and trying to inspire others with something she calls reclamation, that this science basically belongs to all of us. And she talks a lot about access to the night sky of people that, wouldn't have all this, so don't even get to go to college, much less get a PhD like she did. So based on that, it's kind of African American people were doing science all along. I mean, she does refer to Hidden Figures quite a bit. Katherine Johnson is one of her heroes, along with Carl Sagan, actually. Carl Sagan was a big influence on her life also. So, and then in the way he wrote and so on. And then she talks a lot about her Jewish background also. She's actually what's called a Reconstructionist Jew, which is a little different. It really relates Judaism with the larger world. It seems to be a more practical form of Judaism, maybe than some of the Orthodox Jews, just kind of keep to themselves. So she's very open about that sort of thing and how all that ties in. She has taught at MIT, but now she teaches right here at UNH. So it's a good, interesting local person to be talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a really that's a cool kind of crossover because she's both professor of physics and
Yep.
women's studies, like you mentioned.
She's only
Um,
26 years old. She just got a degree in a few years ago.
yeah.
And she was born in 1990, as I said, like East LA, so the tough
Hmm.
section, tough part out there.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know more about what like feminist science is.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if I've ever kind of heard of that as like a area or a field, but very cool. So Shanda Prescod-Weinstein,
Yeah, Weinstein, I
Weinstein,
think. Yeah, I think you
Weinstein.
pronounced the E.
Yep.
Actually,
Cool.
another interesting statistic, and it was mentioned. I watched a couple of interviews by her. I don't think she gave a TED talk yet, but she does just have that book out. So, from the 40-year period, from 1972 to 2012, there were 22,172 white men who got a PhD in physics,
Hmm.
and only 66 black women.
Wow.
She's the 63rd black woman in the entire history of this country who ever got a PhD in physics. And this is a
Wow.
modern young person. She's
Yeah.
only the 63rd person.
Yeah.
I think that I should have given this as a true false for you. I know some of those 22,000 white men, but I don't know any of the African American women
Yeah.
who got their PhDs in physics. So this is still current. She says a lot, this whole hidden figures thing, that's still going on. There's a huge amount of discrimination. It's like living out. It's not
Yeah.
just the 1960s, it's right now. And she went through it. And it
Wow.
inspired her to write this book and all the other neat things she does now. Yeah.
Wow. Did you know that she was uh so Nature, like the magazine, they have like Nature's top 10, like top
Oh,
10 of top 10. She was one of the top 10 in 2020.
oh yeah, no, I didn't know that. Because as I
Yeah.
said, I vaguely heard of her somehow, but I didn't know about her book or that she's
Yeah.
at UNH. I mean, that's kind of neat.
Yeah. But damn, 26. I was
Yeah,
not.
she's only 26. She's not yet tenured,
Yeah.
but hopefully she will be soon.
Basically, it sounds like she has so much
Mhm.
uh potential and she's
Mhm.
just getting started.
Oh yeah, she was
So,
one of her high school teachers said she was the best mathematician in that
yep.
high school in over 30 years, his entire career. So it's not like she has all the background. It's
Yeah.
just that there's all the prejudice against her
Yep.
too.
Yep. Yep.
But she's really smart. She actually, one of the first classes she taught, I'm not sure what college it was at. It was just 2019, so really recently. She had her students do a little 10-minute presentation. They had to pick one atomic element and then talk about the entire cosmic journey that that element went through. And she said this
Oh,
really inspired the students. They really learned the stuff quickly that way because she kind
yeah.
of, and there's been whole books written about how the elements, you trace one,
Yeah.
element through your body or whatever. But to have her students do this, like a really intro, like astronomy, physics
Yeah.
class,
Yeah. Yeah.
similar almost to what I teach in a way, probably more
That's very cool.
because she's
Wow.
got the math background. So just, just really good ideas that, any one of our listeners could kind of look into some of that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. We'll have to have her on for some like
Yeah,
pivot.
we'll try. You can try to get her. UNH. Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, my brother got
Absolutely.
his degree from UNH right down the road here.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow up with somebody who is just a little bit older in age and who also similarly had an elementary school teacher who, in all of her 30 years, had never seen such a bright young person in her class. So, a few weeks ago, we talked with Dr. Dave Champlin about the history of the mRNA vaccine, the development of the mRNA vaccine. And, we had briefly noted that in a weekend after the sequence for the COVID-19 virus was made public to the scientific community, that a vaccine was developed. And Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett is actually, so she's a research fellow, or she was a research fellow at the National Institutes of Health, was a research fellow and lead scientist, lead researcher at the National Institutes of Health, their National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, their vaccine research center. And she specifically focused on coronavirus vaccines and was on that team. And so basically, she was born in 1986 in Hurdle Mills, North Carolina, and her teacher at this rural elementary, Oak Lane Elementary, Murtis Bradshaw, who was also a Black teacher, pushed her mother, Kizzmekie's mother, to give this girl, like, make sure she was enrolled in all the advanced classes and everything. But same thing, she was like, wow, I've never seen such a bright young student in my class for like, and it's like so long. So she received her BS in biological sciences from the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and was also a National Institute of Health undergraduate scholar in 2009. And then she got her PhD in microbiology and immunology in 2014 from UNC Chapel Hill. And that's when she started working on the development of vaccines for novel coronaviruses in 2014. So she's been like part of this team for, I mean, at that point, it's been like 6 years. And the vaccine candidate mRNA 1273 was developed with the COVID-19 sequence, and that was the one that was deployed with Moderna for FDA approval. And again, that was only 66 days after the viral sequence was released. And so in total, she has actually had 15 years of expertise studying respiratory viruses, influenza, and coronaviruses. And she's pretty cool. She's actually much closer to us now as well. So, your person is in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
and Kizzmekia, she's actually in Boston now because in 2021 she joined the Harvard School of Public Health as an assistant professor in the Department of Immunology and Infectious Diseases. And she's also on the Boston COVID-19 Advisory Committee. She was assigned by the mayor in December of 2021. And so in Boston, she's got a new life there. One of her goals actually is, she talks about how we were really lucky that COVID-19 was a coronavirus because they just happened to be studying that for like years. And the stars just happened to align with kind of this existence of this subset of expertise surrounding the coronavirus family of viruses. And so she hopes that that same body of knowledge can be built for other viruses so that vaccines can be quickly and safely developed. And so she talks about this as this concept of pandemic preparedness. And so that's what she's going to be doing in her Harvard lab. One thing that I really liked her quote, she talked about vaccines being the great equalizer when it comes to addressing health disparities, especially around infectious disease. That they're kind of this medical intervention by nature, and they're preventative and cost effective. And, I think one of the things that she does acknowledge is that we can create these wonderful things, but it's not just about the existence of the tools, but around access to care, insurance, and knowledge that does need to be bridged. And I think she's done a lot of work in her adopted role of being kind of this spokesperson for the vaccines. And she also likes to refer to people who are kind of commonly referred to as vaccine hesitant as vaccine inquisitive instead. And I think that's a really good and positive and respectful approach to kind of having conversations about this. And I know that, so Dr. Fauci, I don't know if she's ever been on TV. I don't pay that much attention to that, but they're obviously very close. And I know Dr. Fauci likes to call her Kizzy and things like that. So that's like her nickname. But yeah, Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett has been just like, she's the reason why we have the Moderna vaccine. So that's Black scientist number 2 today.
All right, so now we'll do number 3.
Yeah.
So of course, I picked more astronomy and physics like people. So that's very interesting to me personally and hopefully to the audience. But so this one is really even very interesting because he also is a professional musician. So his name is Dr. Stephon Alexander. And he wrote a book that I just bought today called Fear of a Black Universe, An Outsider's Guide to the Future of Physics. So this is more about the science, but again, a different take. It's certainly not a memoir like the last one we talked about, because she ties in.
Yeah.
So I'll just read a little bit of what it says on the cover about him. So there was one response that he got. So stop reading those physics books. Instead, the professor told him Alexander should start listening to his dreams. So he And he has a lot of interesting influences. John Coltrane, being a jazz
Mm-hmm.
musician. Albert Einstein. When
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Stephon Alexander was only 8 years old, he saw a picture of Albert Einstein in the Museum of Natural History. He grew
Yeah.
up in the Bronx. Stephon Alexander did. Probably went to the same high school as Neil deGrasse Tyson. So he has influences with the science part and the music part. Then he got his PhD from Imperial College in London,
Mm-hmm.
and now he teaches at Brown University in Rhode Island, and
Oh,
that's where he
nice.
lives. But yeah, so he wrote a previous book called The Jazz of Physics. So I was watching a little
Ooh.
talk he gave explaining that, and hopefully maybe our listeners can, if they don't want to get the book or anything, can at least listen to a talk and get to meet
What
Stephen.
is it? What's the meat of it? What's the
Okay,
meat
well,
to
okay,
that book?
so the subtitle to that is The Secret Link of Music to the Structure of the Universe. And this is
Okay.
something I try to cover in my own classes. I have a lot of musicians in my own class. They're doing gigs on the side, just like Stephon Alexander did. He was doing gigs in jazz nightclubs and then doing his postdoc work and his research and his calculation to the day in the daytime. So leading this double life very constructively. So I didn't get that book, but I did listen to a little bit what he says about it and how he started. He said they used to be very separate, and then he was trying to combine them, the music, the
Yeah.
jazz. Being a professional, he's put out some albums, electronic jazz and things like that. And
Man,
obviously,
that's kind of like Baba Brinkman. But does he sing about like physics or does
actually,
he?
I was thinking of him in Heather Berlin because yeah, what he was in his talk, he was like doing one of the raps that first inspired him. The rapper was using scientific lyrics, and then I was thinking of Brian May, the guitarist
Hmm.
for Queen, because he has a PhD in
Hmm.
astrophysics, but he's not African American. So
Yeah.
we're focusing on African American
Yes.
physicists now and their inspirations and so on. So yeah, so this is I just looked through what some I haven't. I mean, I just bought the book today, so I haven't read it. But it's really interesting because it does take a different approach than maybe somebody like Brian Greene or Sean Carroll, even Julian Barber, Max Tegmark, all those people we've talked about before. So so the first part of part one is escape from the jungle of no imagination. So, I mean, basically, you probably know one of my favorite Einstein quotes, who was a big hero for Stephon Alexander, is imagination is even more important than knowledge.
Hmm.
So he's really trying to inspire others. And then he gets into the zen of quantum fields. I mean, both of these people are obviously, very brilliant mathematicians. Chanda actually did her research on dark matter, axions, how axions condense, axions could be dark matter, and that type of thing. Okay, and then he has another cosmic improvisations. So now he's relating his music to kind of the cosmos. Then called the cosmic biosphere, dark ideas on alien life, into the cosmic matrix, and the cosmic mind and quantum cosmology. So a lot of my favorite subjects in cosmology from a professional musician's viewpoint, going
Yeah.
into the science and then making all these other leaps and connections. So I think that's a really interesting way to do that. And not a lot of, there are books out that make some of the connections, but these are brand new books that make those interesting connections in new ways. So the common person can kind of be inspired and guided, and obviously not just African American people, but everyone can be inspired and guided with these two great new books.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Steven Alexander.
Yep, Stephon Alexander. Stephen Phon, not Phen.
Phon.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
originally from the Caribbean. His parents are from the Caribbean, and then he grew up in the Bronx.
okay. Okay.
So it's a little bit of a foreign influence, but yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Thanks, Barney.
sure.
All right. Our last person that wanted to share is, and actually, I did not know this person before, but because I manage our Twitter and I saw this person being highlighted by NASA. And so I was like, I want to learn more. So, Marie Maynard Daly. The reason why we have understanding in the fundamentals of genetics and medicine is because of Marie Daly. And she really was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, her history is incredible. Her father, Ivan Daly, actually, kind of like Stephen, immigrated from the British West Indies and was an avid reader and really inspired Marie to read and kind of become fascinated with books about scientists. One book was called The Microbe Hunters. I don't know if you've heard this before,
Oh, yeah, I've heard of
but
it. Mhm.
really? Okay. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
this I've never heard of it before, but It's a dramatization of scientists and bacteriologists, doctors who discovered microbes and invented vaccines to fight them. And so her father just loved science and had actually attempted pursuing a bachelor's in chemistry at Cornell, but then needed to drop out to find work because he didn't have enough funds to keep going. So Marie was born in Queens, New York, in 1921, and went to school at Hunter College High. And there, she was kind of fully supported in her ambition to follow in her father's footsteps as a chemist, which I was very surprised with considering the time. And she ended up going to Queens College in Flushing and earned her bachelor's in chemistry in 1942, graduated magna cum laude. And she was also the first Black woman to receive a doctorate degree in chemistry from Columbia in 1947, graduating just 3 years after enrolling. She taught at Howard University for 2 years and went on to research the composition and metabolism of components in the cell nucleus. She got a grant from the American Cancer Society, and this was actually work before, like Rosalind Franklin, before Watson, before Crick. And she basically studied the nucleic acids that make up DNA, and it's also where she determined the amino acid sequence of histones and the structure of purines and pyrimidines. So, do you know what histones are? I've never heard of this word before.
I know, vaguely heard of them, but I couldn't define them or
Yeah.
anything.
So histones are actually a protein that helps DNA kind of coil and to form chromosomes. And so they kind of determine the tightness of how like packed that coiling is. And so they also determine which parts of DNA are turned on or expressed. And so she published this work. She was able to like isolate histones from animal DNA. And basically that was kind of the foundational understanding of genes and of gene expression. Sorry. And then later she's taught at a couple different colleges. Her last professorship was at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, where she retired in '86. And during her time there, the other big thing that she contributed to in terms of science was understanding heart attacks and the causes of arteriosclerosis. And so she also published with Dr. Deming, who was kind of studying heart attacks. She found a correlation between cholesterol levels and blood pressure, and used kind of looking at damaged or clogged arteries of rats. And so basically that all served as the foundation for arteriosclerosis and high blood pressure related diseases. So, and I think during that time, she also contributed to the understanding of the harmful effects of cigarettes on the lung and the heart. And because of her cardiovascular work, she was also an investigator for the American Heart Association. So some of the last things, so she died in 2003 and didn't really speak much to her hardships. And obviously she paved the way for many other black women to have just as high, if not higher, aspirations. And in '88, her alma mater, Queens College, she established a scholarship fund for black students in commemoration of her father. So kind of went full circle there with her dad as her kind of primary inspiration. So Bernie.
Yes.
What do we want our listeners to take away from today's episode?
Well, just that there are a lot of great African American scientists who are not as well known as like Neil deGrasse Tyson and some of those people, that they inspire us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And that even Hakeem Olasey was very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we can learn from any of the good scientists, but
Right.
especially the ones that probably had to go through a little bit more, and maybe they learn more and they have a better way to guide others through what they had to go through and so on.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think that's really well said. I think, the Black community shares kind of a history of resilience, which I think we can see in a lot of the folks we highlighted today. And their history is really vast, and it makes American and human history possible. So, or it's part of all that. So, hopefully you learned something new. And with that, you've been listening to Scientifically Speaking here on WMPG with myself and Bernie. Stay tuned for Something for the Weekend with Anella. And from your favorite nerds, just a reminder to vaccinate, to mitigate, and then we can all